Today, let's take a look at a massive Star Wars diorama that features Jabba's palace, as well as a few other scenes from across Tatooine. I mean, there's so much here. There's plenty of movement and motion, there's high levels of accuracy to the source material, and it even has a few Easter eggs as well. So get ready, because this creation is insane. So this was on display at BrickFair, Virginia last year, and the creation was built by Szymon Kowalski. Now, I tried to look them up online. It doesn't seem like they have any social media, sadly. So until that happens, you won't be able to follow them online. But at least we can still appreciate their work. So, I mean, there's heaps to look at inside the palace, but I want to cast your eyes down to the bottom. Here we have the Rancor pit. First of all, the lighting in here is perfect. They've done a great job of mimicking that very low light and capturing the feeling of a dank and dark cavern. But check this out. The door slowly opens up to reveal the Rancor. It steps out, and Luke falls down into the cavern. You're getting the timing on that to work so consistently? Yeah, that's tough. Recreating movement like this is no easy thing to do with LEGO. This is just so impressive. From here, Luke and the Rancor kind of move back and forth to simulate that they're fighting, but then Luke escapes, and the Rancor retreats back into his room. And then the door closes and it can all begin again. I mean, dude, that's insane. Bringing this iconic scene to life like this, it just feels so magical. Adjacent to this is a smaller viewing room, where we've got the Rancor keeper, Malakili. You know, LEGO actually did a pretty good job on this minifigure. It looks just like the source material. On the opposite side, we've got this little corridor with a couple droids moving around. See, you know, I like the inclusion of little transition areas like this. It's the kind of stuff you didn't really see in the movie, but you know, of course, there would be rooms like this inside the palace. Stuff like this adds a really nice touch of realism. This room leads to the droid torture room. And once again, the lighting here just sells this. That gross green spotlight, and then contrasting it with some intense red lighting. You feel so uncomfortable. And I mean, a room where droids are literally getting tortured, like this poor gonk droid getting his feet burnt off, which is a scene in the movie. Yeah, it makes sense to have that uncomfortable feeling. Check out the way that the floor has been constructed, making use of masonry bricks and cheese slopes. Yeah, I love how the cheese slopes make the floor look like it's cracked and damaged. It's quite a nice touch. And it does add to that grim, grimy feeling. Directly above this, we have everyone's favorite droid, the Chef Droid. This guy made an appearance in the Book of Boba Fett. And honestly, I think they've brought him to life in quite an excellent way. To the right of this, we have some prison cells. Inside, you can see Han and Chewie, but we've also got a Wampa in the middle, and what appears to be an Ewok and a goat on the other side. I adore this blue lighting. It actually perfectly recreates the lighting that you see in this actual scene in the movie. There's some good stuff. It's amazing how much lighting can completely transform a creation. One last detail in the underground, we have a maintenance room. Great to see a little bit of movement and motion going on here as well. Quickly moving over to the opposite side, we have the main entrance for the ships, and inside you'll see the Slave One. So this is a callback to the Book of Boba Fett, where Boba breaks into the castle to rescue his ship. And it's also delightful to see one of the Boamar monks. Now, actually, looking back at the ship, at first I thought this was one of the Playscale official LEGO sets, but no, this is actually their own custom creation, and it looks awesome. Okay, so that's it for the lower area of the palace. But before we begin with the rest of the interior, why don't we quickly take a look at the landscape outside? This is capturing a few iconic scenes from the various movies. And I mean, the techniques here, they're fantastic. We've got the Sarlacc pit, and I'm actually quite obsessed with the landscape around it. The way that it neatly slopes down towards the mouth of the Sarlacc, the little ebbs and flows, it's very satisfying. Up above we can see the use of a few rounded tiles. This 3x3 variant specifically appeared in a LEGO Mario set. But here, you know, it looks pretty good as little piles of sand. And flying up above the Sarlacc, we've got a desert skiff. I quite like the touch of adding in some of these 1x2 grill tiles. With some of the official versions of the desert skiff, they tend to have more exposed plates and studs. But yeah, this looks so much more clean, so much more snazzy. It's nice. Down below, we've got a larger Krayt Dragon skeleton. Now this is a reference to the skeleton that C-3PO walks past in A New Hope. And what a nice idea to use Takadox's white mask for the head. This appeared in the Bionicle set, the Toa Terrain Crawler. Let's zoom in a little bit on the beast that has this mask. Good to see even just a little bit of Bionicle in this Star Wars creation. Nearby we have what is likely Ben Kenobi's house. And look at the yellow lighting behind the windows. That subtle hint of light, it just brings this to life, it makes it feel lived in. Then below this we have R2 getting ambushed by some Jawas, which is another scene you probably remember from A New Hope. And then just next door to this we have the escape pod that the droids were in when they crash landed on Tatooine. This appears to be a modified version of an existing LEGO set, but hey, it sells the idea of the original and it looks good. Now for the opposite side of the diorama, we've got a couple towers. These aren't exactly minifigure scale, but the curvature and the angled roofs, well, they look spectacular. And the inclusion of these, it's quite accurate to the source material. The palace consists of that larger building in the middle, and there's those two towers off on the side. Yeah, and on that, it's great to see someone actually building the exterior of this building. So many times people just focus on the interior, nothing wrong with that, but it's a bit of a nice treat to see this brown exterior. You don't see it every day. Although, looking at it from this side, you can get a bit of a peek at what the motors and wires look like. It just goes to show all of the complexity that goes into wiring up that movement that we saw before. But there is even more movement. Let's check it out in Jabba's throne room. We kick off with the Max Rebo band performing on stage. And the hints of coloured lighting coming out from the stage, the band members rotating around. It's great. And it's quite nice to see the full lineup of band members, well, at least the main ones. So you probably recognise that official Max Rebo figure. However, the other two members, Droopy McCool and Sny Snoodles, the weirdest names in Star Wars, but that's what they're called. Yeah, official minifigures of these characters unfortunately don't exist. So these are custom minifigures. They were made by a company called Big Kid Bricks. I'll put a link below if you want to pick up some of these figures yourself. This is not an ad, I just know where these figures come from, they're pretty good. In front of the band we have a few patrons enjoying some drinks, one of which is E.T. So this minifigure came from an old LEGO Dimensions set back in the day. Yeah, it's a fun cameo, but it is also loosely canon to Star Wars. In the prequels, you can see E.T.'s species sitting in the Senate. Now also, the drinks on these characters, the translucent ones, these come from Harry Potter sets. We've also got a brown one which appeared in a LEGO City set. But the shape of the glasses and those exotic bright colours, it does feel so sci-fi. Even though these came from other LEGO themes, they weirdly perfectly fit into a Star Wars context. Now we finally get to Jabba. And this has also got a nice bit of movement and motion. You'll see Luke standing on the trapdoor, which then lowers down as he descends into the Rancor pit. From here, the throne moves forward so that Jabba and everyone else can watch from the little viewing area. So cool! And also, at Jabba's throne, it's been perfectly recreated. I like the touch of adding in these upside-down grey frogs. When we take a look at the actual throne, it perfectly recreates the decorations that you see on the front. It's a nice part use. Oh, and then we've got some more beautiful lighting as well, making things look accurate, pretty, it's the best. The crowd of aliens are also pretty awesome. I like the touch of including Garindan. You might recognize this guy from A New Hope. He was the spy that alerted the Imperials that Luke and Ben were heading off in the Millennium Falcon. So yeah, the little touch of him getting a bit of information from that Tulls guy there, that's a fun little story detail. Up the back you'll see Han Solo in Carbonite. But I do want to point out this wall design. Mixing in medium nougat and dark tan plates every now and then, that's an awesome way of breaking up the tan walls. Because if this was just purely tan bricks, it might start to look a little boring and monotonous. So putting this in, it's nice, and it adds to that dark and grimy feeling that the palace does have. Yeah, it matches the source material quite well. And you can say the same for some of these decorated arches above Jabba's throne. That is how they look in the source material. Off to the side we've got a few more aliens having a good time, but I want to point out old mate Tion Madan. This is another custom figure by Big Kid Bricks. I'll have a link below if you want to pick one up. Yeah, you might recognize this character of course from Revenge of the Sith. You might also see this goat on the wall. You might not be aware of it, but this goat only ever appeared in one LEGO set. It was a castle set. What makes this one special is that it has that printing on the side. If you want one of these, they're like 80 bucks. They're very expensive. So look, if Han Solo is his prize on the wall, I guess this is Jabba's other prize. It's kind of a nice idea. So that's Jabba's throne room. We've got more rooms up above, like Boba's bacta tank. It's a nice touch to include the white cloth in the background, and then you light it from behind with some orange lighting. This is a good way of recreating the two suns of Tatooine, like we see in the show. This is actually a really good recreation of this room. They've done a great job. But I do want to zoom in on these walls. Here's a splattering of the different pieces that were used when constructing this very detailed texture. We see all sorts of things across this, ingots, studs, dots, quarter tiles, masonry bricks. It helps give it that rougher texture. Because think about it, if this was just basic bricks stacked on top of each other, it would look too clean. It would look too boring. I really appreciate the eye for detail that this builder has. I mean, even just the choice of putting in a bit of dark brown and reddish brown on the outside walls, that's a nice touch too. So there you go. That's a deep dive into this gigantic creation. The movement, the lighting, the details, the accuracy. This was a sight to behold. Well done to Mr. Szymon Kowalski. You built a masterpiece. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Happy building, and bye for now.